Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Retire Well, the show that's dedicated to helping you retire well in all areas of your life. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is Kevin Bucher. He is the co-founder and a financial advisor at Citizen Advisory Group. Kevin, it's always a joy to be here serving the wonderful folks of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. Great to see you.
Yep, it's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to today's show. We're going to talk about the 5 checkpoints of financial planning, and really it's what brings all of the financial planning areas together. So really excited to kind of share that with today's viewers.
Absolutely. You know, it's something I'm very passionate about as well. And what I love about today's show is that it was inspired by a recent conversation that Kevin had. So Kevin, I am so excited for you to be able to share this story because I think it really sets the context for our discussion today.
Yeah, so Bob and Carol, some new clients for our firm. So they came to us. They had been working with one of the big box national corporate, the big national branding firms prior.
The names that everyone would recognize,
yes,
right?
And they might be, all around the country and did a lot of advertising. So, and they had been with them for a while. And it wasn't that they were unsatisfied with the relationship they had there, because they really felt like the advisor had done a pretty good job as far as helping them to accumulate your wealth. In reality, when we really dug into some of the numbers, maybe the performance wasn't quite as good as they thought it was, but they didn't come in feeling like they were being underserved.
Right.
But the reality was we were able to peel back the covers a little bit and look at some of the different areas of financial planning that were totally being neglected.
So I'm curious, what made them come in? If they weren't, dissatisfied, did they hear you, on the TV show? Had they just heard about you from someone else? Or what made them decide that they needed to come in and have this conversation?
Yeah, so I think it was a combination of several things. People's confidence was maybe a little rattled in 2022 when the markets didn't perform really well.
Right.
Plus some of the consistent messaging that we put out there through the TV show and some of our other marketing efforts. But then there also was a relationship with one of our existing clients that kind of really pushed them over the edge that we need to go and hear what we're missing out on that we might not be getting in this current relationship.
Right. So it was a second opinion, if you will, in
yes.
that way.
So I don't think they came in with this intention that they were looking to switch, but they just wanted to kind of take a look at their situation and see if there was anything that they were missing. And again, they were somewhat satisfied with the investment performance. And too often, I think we associate the financial advisor with how our accounts are performing, and there certainly is something to that, but there's so much more that the financial advisor could be and should be providing. And in their case, that added up to some really significant things. So we looked at their situation. Number one, they were just a few years from retirement. There's a pretty big age difference between the two. There's an 8-year age difference. And we were looking at their situation, and they had no retirement income plan.
Oh, wow.
So when they leave the workforce, they didn't really understand, okay, what are we going to live off of? So we worked with them to develop this retirement income plan. They didn't have any tax strategy, and this was one of the bigger ones because they were setting on some accounts where they had some long-term capital gains, and they didn't really have any strategy on how they were going to realize those capital gains at one of the lower tax rates. So there's 3 different capital gains tax rates, and I think a lot of people are not familiar with that.
Right, so let's go through these.
Yeah, 0, 15, and 20%.
Right.
The obvious, if you got to pick which one of those rates you would pay, the obvious answer would be 0%.
Right.
But without a plan, without a strategy, that's not going to just happen. So we were able to work with them on developing a strategy to realize these gains and pay no tax on it.
Wow.
They had no Social Security strategy. And for couples that are out there, especially couples where there's a little bit of an age difference between the two of them, Social Security planning is a really critical thing that you have to get right because it can make a difference of not just a couple $100s a month. Over the course of your lifetime, we're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in difference. And then finally, they didn't have a strategy for their health insurance. So when they're leaving the workplace, they're also going to lose not just the paycheck, but they were losing their health insurance coverage. So what was that going to look like for them?
Right, because Medicare doesn't kick in until 65.
Yes, and they were retiring a little bit before the Medicare eligibility, especially the younger spouse. So that all ties into the retirement income plan, the tax strategy, the health insurance. Believe it or not, those 3 things all are very connected on how you control your insurance cost. So coming into the meeting, the focus was so much about, well, my current advisor has helped me in the accumulation phase and start to build some wealth for us to live off of in retirement. But there was no strategy. It was totally being ignored on how do we then take that accumulation of wealth and turn it into something that's going to support our spending needs and do it in the most efficient way so that we're not just giving away unnecessarily to taxes.
And this story is one that I find is really common. As you know, I've traveled the country and worked as a financial educator, and so much of the financial industry has been built on this accumulation phase, if you will, helping folks grow their wealth, grow their money, which obviously is necessary. But success in retirement has so much more to do with your ability to be able to take that wealth that you've accumulated and know how you can turn it into a reliable, ongoing, steady stream of income that's going to support you for the rest of your life, and how you make a decision in one area of your financial life can easily impact all these others. That's why you have to look at all these different pieces from that comprehensive point of view.
Yeah, it has to be a holistic plan where all of the pieces are working together. And we have a team at our office that can really help. So we have a team of advisors who specialize in these different areas of financial planning, and we would love to help you, but we can't do that until you take the first step and reach out and schedule that complimentary consultation so you can come in and see what you might be missing out on as well.
Yeah, so when folks call in today, I know that you're offering this complimentary retirement checkpoint review. Talk a little bit more about what goes into that and what they can expect.
Yeah, so there's five different areas to financial planning, and they are their own unique areas, but there's so much cohesion between these areas. So we're going to look at investment management. So what is your investment strategy? It has to be tailored to your comfort level with the markets. It has to be tailored to your capacity to take on some of the risk of the market, but we're going to look at your investments. We're also going to look at your retirement plan. So, that you can boil that down into what's your saving strategy and while you're working, and then what is the income strategy for when you're stopped working. And that ties in like Social Security planning, any pensions that you might have, and then your portfolio withdrawal plan. So investment management, retirement planning, and then we get into taxes. And I might be a little bit of a different bird when it comes to taxes because I really enjoy doing the tax planning, because if we can keep more of your hard-earned money, that's a big success. So tax planning is the third area there. Fourth area is what we call the risk management package. That's taking that deep dive into your whole insurance package. Starts with health insurance, but then it rolls into long-term care insurance, life insurance, what your life insurance situation is, and then also home and auto. We provide all of those services. And then the fifth and final area, and I know it sounds like a lot already, fifth and final area is legacy and estate planning. How do we set up your estate so that it passes in the most efficient way possible?
So much goes into this, and I know you are so passionate about doing it, and I'm excited to continue on the show and dive more deeply into each of these 5 areas.
Yes, there's a lot to all of them, and they could all be their own standalone show, but we're going to do it all bundled into one easy show today.
Absolutely. So buckle up, get ready for the rest of today's show, but we encourage you, if you would like to receive your very own complimentary retirement checkpoint review from Kevin and the team at Citizen Advisory Group, it's really simple. All you need to do is call this number on the bottom of your screen, 866-630-1675. Or if you prefer, you're also welcome to take out your smartphone. If you open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary visit that way as well. Stay with us. More on these important retirement planning checkpoints right after this.
I have a bachelor's degree in education. I spent the first part of my working years teaching. I left the teaching world and went into a family business endeavor that eventually led me down to the financial services world. And there really is a lot of overlap between the two, taking comprehensive topics and breaking that into common sense, easy to understand framework, whether that was in the classroom or now in a meeting room with clients. There was a transition, but some of the skills from the education world transferred very well over into the financial world. By and large, people are very confused about the financial planning process. And oftentimes they kind of settle for the default outcome of that, of not really having control. One of my favorite parts of the process is putting the solutions together and then presenting that back to the client and seeing maybe some light bulbs going off to understanding things that maybe there wasn't a great understanding of before. Setting goals, working towards those goals, and helping them along this journey to having a more successful financial outcome. I do have an oversight role as well, where I'm overseeing other advisors. We work very well together in a collaboration where we bring different areas of knowledge and expertise to the table to really provide more comprehensive solutions for our clients.
Welcome back to Retire Well. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Kevin Bucher, co-founder and financial advisor of Citizen Advisory Group. We are talking today about the 5 retirement planning checkpoints that you need to make sure you are on top of in order to ensure that you can retire well. So I know the first one, Kevin, is obviously investment management.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, so not a big mystery on this one, so we'll kind of hit this one pretty quick. So when it comes to your investment strategy, we really want to make sure that we put together a portfolio that's going to be tailored to your comfort level with risk. So how comfortable are you with the ups and downs, the volatility of the market? And that is a big part of what determines what should your investment strategy look like. So I think it's easy to kind of just walk through a client story again of this. So
Sure,
a client we met with a while back, her name was Jill. She came to us and we were able to do an analysis of her current investment portfolio that showed her exactly how much risk or how much she had to stand, or much she stood to lose in a down market. So we do this analysis of her portfolio, and it came back and it said, if the market dropped roughly 25%, which is, hopefully we don't see that happen,
Right.
but that does happen.
Yep.
And based on how she was invested, if the market dropped 25, that looked like an 18% loss to her. So if the market dropped 25, based on her investments, it looked like she would lose about 18%. So the question was, would you be comfortable with an 18% loss? And after thinking about it, she said, if the market dropped 25 and I was only down 18, I guess I would be comfortable with that. But then when we put some numbers to that, it was like, okay, so if you lost 18%, that represented about $350,000 of dollars for her.
Right. It's amazing when you put a monetary amount on it, right?
It was a totally different reaction.
Yeah.
And for her, no, she was not comfortable with losing $350,000. So we had to look at a different investment approach for her. So the investment management comes down to that. How comfortable are you with loss? How much can you afford to lose?
Right.
And then, okay, what's the right investment portfolio then?
Yeah, and so much goes into that for sure.
Yes.
Well, I know we got to keep moving with the 5 checkpoints, so we're kind of hitting everything on a high level today, but that brings us to retirement planning, which is what you specialize in doing. I mean, all of this fits into retirement planning, but let's talk about some of the unique things that set you all apart in this space.
Okay, so really, I think retirement planning is where you do have to start. I know we started with the investment strategy, but we really need to start with the retirement strategy because that tells us what we need to do with our investments. So I would break the retirement planning into 2 different phases. The first phase is while you're working, and that's really all about what is your saving strategy? How much of your money can you afford to set aside for your future? How much do you need to set aside so that you have the future that you're intended to? So the first part is all about what is the saving strategy. But then as we get closer to retirement, it's now not about saving money anymore. It's about what is going to be the withdrawal strategy. How much can you sustainably withdraw from these investment accounts to support your spending needs? So we have to have a strategy for that encompasses the right Social Security strategy for you and your situation.
Yep.
We already touched in the first section of the show today that that could make a 6-figure difference to the benefits you receive over the course of your lifetime. So we have to have the right Social Security strategy. If we are lucky to have a pension, we have to have the right pension strategy. And then finally, we get then to the investment portfolio. How much can we sustainably withdraw from that while still preserving some money for the what ifs that might come up later? So there's a lot that goes into retirement planning, and I look at that as kind of like the glue of all of these retirement checkpoints because it relies on all of these other areas. They're all very connected to the retirement plan.
For sure. And to your point, it's so important to have that right withdrawal strategy. It's knowing what money to withdraw when from where, right? I mean, so much plays into that. And if you get that wrong, that could really have some negative tax consequences,
Yes.
for example.
So that leads right into the third checkpoint, which is the tax planning. And the tax planning really comes down to is, where should you be saving your money? Should you be putting it in a tax deferred account where you are going to pay the taxes at a later date? Should you be putting in a tax-free account like a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k? Or should you be saving your money in just a taxable account where you pay the taxes as you go, or you pay the taxes on an annual basis? So tax planning is a big part of the saving strategy, but then it's just as much a part of the strategy on the withdrawal. How do I get money out of these accounts at the lowest tax rates possible?
Right.
And again, a client example, so Paul and Janice, new retirees. So they're leaving the workforce from when their income was fairly high up here. And now they're going into retirement, and their needs are much lower than where their income was in the working years. So they're actually going to have a much lower income in retirement than when they were working. But when we forecast out a little bit further into the future, specifically the age of 73. Because at 73, we have to start taking the mandatory distributions.
Yes, required minimum distributions, those pesky RMDs,
Yes.
right?
So they have to take money from their pre-tax retirement accounts, and that takes them right back up to high income. So what that highlighted for us is, okay, you're working, you have a high income. Not a great time to take on more income and pay the tax because you're already in a higher tax bracket.
Right.
In your future, you project to be back in that high tax bracket. But as you entered into retirement, your income's dropping, you're now at a low tax level. And I look at that as, that is the sweet spot for when we should start paying some of the taxes. So there's ways that we can start taking money from these pre-tax accounts, move them over into tax-free accounts, and we would want to do that at these lower tax rates.
Right. And do it without bumping someone up into a higher tax bracket unnecessarily.
Yeah. So look at it like this. If they project to be 24% tax bracket in their future, and they're 10% today, well, that actually set for us, and this is exactly the conversation we had, that 24% is full price. Anything less than 24% is a sale. And that's when you want to pay taxes. You want to pay taxes when they're on sale. And that doesn't just happen on accident. It takes planning, it takes understanding the rules, it takes having the software to run these different projections and calculations. But by doing that, we can determine when taxes are going to be on sale for them, and we choose to pay taxes when they're on sale. And that will save them tens of thousands of dollars over the next 10 to 15 years of their lives in taxes. And we can do that for many of you out there as well. Our team is licensed to serve as fiduciaries for our clients, and we look at all of these different areas of financial planning. And we have a team of people, we're very specific in who we bring in. We have people that want to help. So we obviously get taken care of when we bring in clients financially, but if you don't have that heart that you want to help the people out there, then you're not going to be a right fit for our firm.
I know you're very selective with who you work with in terms of bringing it into the team of Citizen Advisory Group, and that is the heartbeat of the practice, is wanting to really help and serve your best interests. So if you're out there, we realize you might be like that couple that Kevin shared about in the first segment. Maybe you're already working with another financial advisor, but there's a lot of peace of mind that can come from just getting a second opinion, from getting a second set of eyes to take an objective, independent look to see if you're on track. And if everything looks like it's on track, they're going to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. But if there's areas that could use improvement, or maybe you need to engage in the strategic tax planning, they will be able to be happy to show you that and be able to work with you. So if you would like your very own complimentary retirement checkpoint review, simply call 866-630-1675. Or again, you're welcome to take out your smartphone and scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. More on this episode of Retire Well right after this.
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks took a major hit.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. I'm Kevin Bucher of Citizen Advisory Group. If you have amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. This is one of the greatest tax windows in history. Now is the time to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. We specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, legacy planning, and so much more. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and written financial plan.
Welcome back to Retire Well, where this week we are discussing the 5 financial planning checkpoints. And Kevin, that now brings us to the risk piece of this puzzle, right?
Yes. So I think a lot of times when we say risk management, people associate that with managing the risk of the stock market. And that is a component of the risk management. But really what we're talking about is your insurance coverage. How do we set up your insurance plan so that you're getting the coverage that you need, but you're also getting that coverage at the most affordable price? So there's certain things that can erode your wealth as you get into retirement. It's taxes, it's the wrong withdrawal strategy, and it certainly can be these insurance costs. So we need to control these insurance costs.
Right, especially long-term care. I know that is one that gets a lot of people,
Yes.
causes angst because of the costs and the expense with that.
Yeah, so I look at that as one of the specific areas of risk management. So there's 4 different areas that we're going to talk about here a little bit. We got the health insurance, your medical.
Right.
That doesn't include long-term medical because unfortunately your basic medical, whether it's an employer-sponsored plan or you're pre-65 on an Affordable Care Act insurance plan or you're on Medicare, that's going to cover your medical expenses, but that does not cover a long-term illness that would involve potentially like a nursing facility care. So we have the medical insurance, long-term care insurance. Then the third area would be looking at the life insurance situation. And your life insurance needs greatly evolve as you go through life. So I think a mistake people make too often is they purchase an insurance policy, they then throw it in the drawer and they don't revisit it. But the reality is your insurance needs are consistently changing over time.
They need adjusting and tweaking, right?
Yeah, the type of policy you might have been appropriate as a 30-year-old. It might not be as appropriate as a 50-year-old. And unfortunately, we uncover on a regular basis people have a policy that they thought worked one way, and then they find out when they're in their 60s and 70s that, no, that policy didn't work that way, and the policy ends up lapsing. And at the time of their life when they probably are looking to need it the most, that policy's lapsing on them. So you got the medical, long-term care, and then you have life insurance. The fourth and final component would be the home and auto insurance coverage. So again, looking at all those different types of insurance, understanding what type of coverage do you need at this stage of your life, and then going around and shopping. I think it's important to be a good shopper, and as an independent agency, we're able to do that shopping across multiple carriers for our clients.
And able to really, I mean, you don't have the limitations. You're able to go outside and say, this is what's best, then we'll use this, right?
Yeah, so we don't have quotas. I don't have proprietary products sitting on my shelf that we have to push and promote. So it really is just finding the right situation for your individual specific needs. And as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the areas that can chip away at or erode your retirement savings. So you work your whole life to build this nest egg, and there's tax complications that could chip away at it. There's insurance costs that could chip away at it. But with the right planning, we can hold those things at bay and protect and preserve your retirement savings. So it's about much more than just protecting and preserving your assets from the risk of the stock market and the stock market losses. But there's so much focus as an industry on that. And so far, consumers haven't demanded more from the financial advisor. But I think that's largely because they just don't know the difference.
Sure, you don't know what you don't know. And you know, you and I both know from being in it for as long as we have that so much goes into this. And we always say how you make a decision in one area of your financial life can and will affect all the others. This is why you have to look at all these different pieces.
Yeah, and when you're not getting a cohesive or holistic financial planning approach, you end up with a very disjointed plan. So you have an investment strategy because you have somebody that you're working with your investments. You might have a CPA who is helping you do your taxes. You might have an attorney who's helping you with your legacy and estate planning. But the reality is none of these entities are usually talking to each other. So one hand has no idea what the other is doing, and you end up with a very disjointed plan.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I know we need to make sure we get to the fifth component here today, the fifth checkpoint, which is legacy and estate planning.
Yes, so we almost missed it, because as I was going through that, I was like, oh, we missed legacy and estate
No,
planning.
I wasn't going to
So-
let you miss it. I promise. It's
Yeah.
important.
So it's just as important as the rest. We want to make sure that you have your affairs in order. So that starts by making sure that our clients have proper power of attorney in place for the event of a long-term illness where they need someone else to act on their accord. But it's also just making sure you have your beneficiary designation set up so that you can bypass the probate process and your wishes happen. So we just had this last week in our office dealing with our existing clients who are dealing with the loss of a parent. And they had the beneficiaries set up on their accounts in a certain way, but it was inconsistent with what was in the will.
Oh, that's so common
And
too.
in the will was how it was intended to happen. So there was supposed to be some money split amongst 3 siblings.
Okay.
That's not the way it was set up on the accounts. And the account beneficiary designations trump the will.
Yes, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Right, so we just need to review all that, help our clients make sure that they have everything set up properly and then it's consistent.
Yeah, for sure. Those beneficiary designations, I've heard some horror stories of, people set up an account and they haven't looked at it in 20 years and they left it to an ex-boyfriend even I've seen happen before. And so it's so important to make sure that those are up to date.
Yeah, so in this specific situation, the money was to be split amongst 3 siblings, but one of the siblings owed the other 2 some money, and it was drawn up that way in the will.
Right.
But it wasn't that way on the account forms. So they're going to have to go outside of the process and settle that up with each other. And in this situation, it looks like that's going to happen. But as you know, sometimes money does some weird things,
Yep.
and that's not always the case.
Right.
So,
And, legacy and estate planning, I think people shy away from a lot of times, but really it's about making sure your wishes are carried out. And it's one of the most loving things you can do is to make sure that all that is in order for those that you leave behind.
yes. So, tying these 5 things back together, this retirement checkpoint review that we're offering, we're going to take a look at your situation across all 5 of these areas, and we're going to be able to flush out for you where are some areas that we can start to help you and make a difference in. But we can't do that until you pick up that phone and schedule this appointment. We will promise to spend that hour, and it'll all be about you and how we can help you get on the better path for your retirement.
Kevin, thank you so much. It's always a joy to be with you, and we appreciate you watching at home. And again, just a reminder, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how Kevin and the team of Citizen Advisory Group can help and serve you. Again, that number to call is 866-630-1675, or you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. We hope you found this to be educational and valuable. That's how it's intended each and every week. We look forward to being back with you next week on Retire Well.